What is up, everybody? This is Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. I think I need to make sure and confirm that Morgan has the dog, so I'm going to pop her in. Sorry about that. Did you get it?
Let me see if I got the new. Oh, yep, there it is.
Okay.
Oops, there it is.
I also had to check part of the reason that we do the sort of looping videos to make sure everything's running correctly. And I forgot to add Facebook to the stream. So I had to do that in the midst of the.
Oh, no.
So if you're watching on Facebook, you should be able to watch on Facebook because we should be streaming on Facebook. So I think we have that under control. So we do have the doc. We're ready to go. And we are going to be talking about the penultimate episode of season 2 of My Adventures with Superman. Very exciting stuff. A lot happens. And we're going to be talking about it. So if you are watching and you want to share your thoughts with us, drop them in the live chat and we will get to them. So I guess we should officially get started now and get to talking about the episode.
Sounds good.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And we are live and wired on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and the Supergirl Radio Facebook page to discuss the Season 2 penultimate episode of My Adventures with Superman titled Pierce the Heavens, Superman. So I assume that is, I was reading from the doc and not even paying attention to what was happening on the screen.
We're also here with Bunsen. Bunsen has joined us early in the episode. Usually he comes in later for more of his, and he's gone. He usually does love to knock over the ring light. That's sort of part of his thing. That's what he can really contributes to the podcast. So chaos.
So he's not doing that now. He's just kind of wandering around.
He left. He jumped off. He's like, I simply could not. I simply cannot.
Just give a tease to the people of what he's up to tonight. So maybe we'll see him again. I'm not real sure.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible. Usually he doesn't come in this early, so
he wanted to make his presence known right off the bat.
He sure did.
He was excited about the penultimate episode of
He loves saying penultimate as well. So
if you're new to Supergirl Radio, we love the word penultimate and try to say it as much as we can because you don't get that many chances to say it. So you have to capitalize on it when you get the chance. Well, we are going to be discussing the penultimate episode of Season 2 of My Adventures with Superman. And the max description for Pierce the Heavens Superman reads, quote, Jimmy and Kara race back to Metropolis to stop Brainiac's invasion of Earth. Meanwhile, Lois tries to free Clark from Brainiac's control, only to lose herself in an alternate reality where Superman never left Krypton, unquote. So big Kryptonian Black Mercy stuff in this episode. So I think we talked in the last episode of Supergirl Radio about the different version or differences in the way Black Mercy was depicted in some of the other versions of the Kryptonian mythology that we've seen. And with this version that they are presenting to us in My Adventures with Superman. But this is portraying two people in the same sort of Black Mercy experience. So Morgan, what did you think about Lois entering the Black Mercy and her effort to get Clark to remember who he was?
Yeah, I thought it was like an interesting twist that she's like, fine, he's in there, I'll go in there. And I thought that was such a good twist at the end of last week's episode. And I really liked the way that they built it in this week's episode where, I wasn't sure where they were going to go with that, with having Lois in the Black Mercy and sort of in Clark's memories. And I like the sort of Groundhog Day-ness of it, honestly, where she tries to get Clark out and then keeps on getting reset back to the beginning and going back at it and doing it again. I thought it was an interesting wrinkle that initially when she's in the Black Mercy, she doesn't have her memories.
Right.
And she doesn't really know who she is or what she's doing there. And then once she sees Clark again, she remembers and then it realizes that she needs to kind of jumpstart his memories coming out of that. So I thought that was like an interesting wrinkle to have her start without her memories. But I'm glad that they didn't like keep that up for the whole episode because I think that would have been a little tiring. And having her have more agency and be like, okay, this is what I'm here for. This is what my mission is. I'm getting Clark out. I think was more interesting than like if we had spent the entire episode going like, wake up, Lois, which I feel like they could have very easily done. And they went the direction where they're like, okay, this is where we're starting out. We're kind of like faking you out that that's what we're going to do. And then pretty quickly that she realizes what she's in for. And then she's like, okay, back on mission. And I like sort of the her going back over and over and over again. And the medley of that, basically, of her being like, glitched out back to the beginning, and then okay, well this time I'm gonna hide in a bush, and then it's like she opens it up and the evil 𝙬𝙪 is like right there. I thought that was a really fun like twist on the sort of the almost a time loopy kind of storyline, and I thought that they did a really nice job with that.
They also, because of doing it that way, there was always an urgency in what she was doing. At some point, she does it so much over and over again without any success. At some point, she just really quickly, within the first 2 seconds, is like, "Your name is Clark, and you're my boyfriend." And she gets straight to the point, trying to get him to remember. Now, I am curious about your thoughts on this, because I am more of a set up the rules within this universe and kind of stick with them kind of person. So I paid attention to the way she remembered herself and her memories. And the way that her memory floods back is that she shakes Kal-El's hand after he brings her a slice of cake. And that's not really I thought, as I watched the episode, that if her touching Kal-El or Clark was the way she remembered, maybe the same kind of contact would work for him, but it doesn't. There is no he remembers because she said confesses to him that she's desperately in love with him, and that like triggers his memory. So what are your thoughts on that as a writer yourself?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a fair critique of it, honestly, because it isn't the same rules that wakes him up. I will say about halfway through the episode, I realized that was what it was going to take to wake him up, because at one point she hesitates. She says something like, I, and then all of a sudden the evil parents come up and they're like, "Glitch out." And I was like,
actually,
oh.
they say 𝙈𝙮 𝘼𝙙𝙪𝙧𝙚, which means kill code.
Oh.
Esperanto. I don't know what Esperanto is, but when I looked it up, it said that it meant kill code.
Interesting. I was wondering what they were saying.
Every time they said 𝘼𝙤 𝘼𝙙, that was them trying to enact the kill code.
Yeah, you could tell that Lois was trying to get something out that was like kind of like emotionally tough for her to get out, and I was like, "Oh, it's going to be like the I love you." Like that's what's going to bring him back. So, it didn't surprise me when I turned out to be right at the end. But I agree with you that the internal consistency of the rules of the Black Mercy like Mind Palace, yeah, they didn't make a lot of sense for me. Because it was a satisfying story, like emotionally with the characters, I was able to hand wave it. I was like, rules, what rules? I've been in weirder places. I've been in the Phantom Zone, in the filing section of the Phantom Zone. I can accept anything now.
Yeah, I had
what was it? The totems in the last season.
Oh my gosh! Let's not revisit that. Let's not revisit the totems.
Like map out the totem storyline in the last season of Supergirl. I was like, you know what? If it makes even a tiny bit of sense, I'm okay jumping on board.
We made such an effort too. We really tried. We tried so hard to understand the totem storyline. So we can't be called haters, because we really tried to jump on board with that storyline. Even when it got to Lex and Nixley, we were like, okay, if this is what you're doing, but I don't know.
We were just trying to understand.
But yeah, I can hand wave some things. It just kind of bothers me that it's not a similar situation, but I'm willing to go with it. There was another thing that I thought the show hand waved, was that early on in the episode, they were like, we've never had a situation where two people were in the Black Mercy together. And they were like, well, we're not going to really kind of go into the reasoning how they're both existing in the Black Mercy together. We're just going to move on from there. We don't really need to know how this is working. So
it's like one of those things where it's like, it's never been done before. And it's like, oh, cool. I can't wait to learn how this is possible. And they're like, who could know? I mean, that's the way to do it. Once again, I was like just strapping myself in, buckling up. I was like, along for the ride, baby. Along for the ride. They were like, we're gonna make no effort at explaining how this is possible. We're doing it, and it's happening.
Yeah, so there were some things that we just had to jump on board with the story on. One thing that I think you and I both kind of had some familiarity with, because these creatures were featured on the Supergirl TV series. But the episode begins with a Sun Eater. Did that trigger some memories of?
I yelled, "Baby Sun Eater, I love you," and then I was like, "Where did that come from?" It was like I was like a sleeper agent that had just been unlocked, and then I realized like I didn't even remember what that was from. If it was from like an animated thing, or if it was from Supergirl, or where it was from. It was just like frightening to me personally that I had like this like immediate reaction of like, "Oh my god, baby Sun Eater," and then I was like, where did that come from? Was that from Supergirl, the TV show?
It was
Okay.
Supergirl, the TV
I couldn't remember if it was like the TV show or a comic or something else we had watched. And I was like, it's from somewhere. And obviously it's stored deep down inside of me, that just waiting for its moment to jump up. So I was obviously very excited to see the Sun Eater. This guy looked really cute too. He was like, reaching for that little sun while Clark was feeding him. I was like, so the consistent thing is that Sun Eaters are adorable. And I'm glad we are sticking with that.
Yes, I had to go back and look up where they appeared. So, Sun Eaters have an appearance in season 4 of Supergirl in the episode Stand and Deliver. They are also in season 5, the Deus Ex Machina and the Missing Link episodes. And they are also mentioned in season 6 in the episode I Believe in a Thing Called Loved. Believe in a Thing Called Love. So they are referenced quite a bit on Supergirl. So that was how I remembered them.
I saw a comment in the chat that I wanted to pull up. Mind the Gap says Sun Eaters are from Legion of Superheroes comics. In All-Star Superman, Superman had a pet Sun Eater, and they referenced the pet Sun Eater in Supergirl. So apparently Sun Eaters are all over the place. The only consistent thing is that they are adorable and we all love them. Perfect pet, low maintenance.
Yeah.
Only needs to eat a sun every once in a while.
Which we see in this episode that Cal feeds him, her, one.
Yeah. Who's to know?
So it did seem like Cal had a little bit of a pet Sun Eater here. And I think the Sun Eater, I think they were trying something deeper with the Sun Eater because Cal wants to bond with it to try to communicate with the Sun Eater because the Sun Eater is the last of his kind. And Cal wanted to learn from him so that he would be able to let the Sun Eater know that he's not alone. So who does that sound like, though?
That sounds like a lot like maybe he's working out some internal issues. It's funny because at this point in the episode, Clark doesn't realize that he is all alone because he thinks that he's living in this like Kryptonian society
with his mother and father.
Yeah, so it is interesting that there's like that breakthrough of kind of the real Clark's personality and his real issues kind of like seeping into his subconscious like Kryptonian memory mind palace. I thought that was really interesting.
And I'm guessing that by the end of season 2, I feel like he should already know this, but maybe that's leading to at the end of season 2, he's connected to his cousin now. And he, definitely has this very solid romantic relationship with Lois. And he's super pals with Jimmy. And they had a little falling out, but Jimmy thought they had a falling out, I guess. But I don't think Clark ever walked away from that. But he has people in his life he can count on. And so I think he should realize that he's not alone, even though he on some level maybe thinks that. So yeah, there were lots of other things happening in this Kryptonian world. One of them being that Lois realizes at the end of the time in the Black Mercy world that she has superpowers. So Morgan, what did you think about that twist that she was superpowered?
I loved Super Lois. I thought she was so cool. And I also think it was, again, it's good storytelling for this season of My Adventures with Superman. But earlier in the season, a couple of times we see her be sort of self-conscious about, whether or not Clark will really loves her or really likes her, even though she is just a normal person, like a normal regular human. And it's part of what makes her really self-conscious and kind of lash out at him him when they're at that like sort of super, eligible bachelor and bachelorette taping in the one episode where they air quotes break up. And so I thought it was really cool that she has this sort of confirmation that in Clark's eyes, she is a superhero. This is how he sees her. They're in his mind palace. And obviously, then it's his rules. And in his mind, he imagines Lois as a superhero, which I thought was such a fun way to give her powers in this one episode and have her be able to, punch Kryptonian like miles away and, also punch the sky,
Yeah, the reason that Clark or Kal-El explains in the Black Mercy world about her getting superpowers is that in his mind, she's the strongest person he knows. And so that may just be in reality that she's emotionally strong or mentally strong, maybe not physically stronger than him, but maybe she is a strong-willed person and a strong person with the way she lives her life. And so in this world, that becomes a more physical, tangible property and personality trait or physicality of her. So yeah, so there was a bit of a twist there in the Black Mercy world for Lois and for Superman. And of course, the way they fight it out is that they both remember who they are. They finally get to the point where they remember who they are, and they do punch, pierce the heavens, as the title says, and they get back out. So before we leave the Black Mercy world, are there any other comments, Morgan, that you have or anything in the chat that people are talking about?
I really like in that end, it wasn't really an end scene, but like at the end of that storyline of like being in the Black Mercy, being in sort of Clark's mind, they go like very like full out anime style. Like the music starts hopping. I'm like, I'm feeling inspirational vibes. I'm feeling like it's time to band together with the power of friendship and love and beat the enemy. And then they do like it's a very like traditional, at least like when I was watching anime like back in the 90s, a very like 90s anime, somebody who's grew up on that genre of anime, where they all like, okay, it's time to go, and the music's like wow, wow, wow. And then they like punch the sky together, and I was like, this is perfect. Like a single tear just like escaped my eye, and I was like, it's so beautiful. I really like that they're doing this in an anime style, not just as like, hey, we're going to do this in an anime style. They're doing it like, if we're going to do it in anime style, we're going to have call outs. It's going to feel like anime. Like they're referencing what their inspiration is, I think, in a really, really cool way. And they've been doing it pretty consistently. That's like not overpowering. It doesn't feel like it's like, so intense that it's like almost parody. It's like, it's very respectful reference to anime. But I did like how the music like swelled up and everything got like really, I was like, oh man, I'm hyped. I'm going to go punch the sky.
Yeah, it's a Superman story told in the format of an anime. That's what they are presenting. And I've seen enough anime to know that was how those kinds of stories and episodes go. And for me, because I'm not like a huge fan, like a fan of anime, I respect it. I'm just not a fan. It's just not my thing. But I recognize, like, when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is super cheesy. But I was like, this is the way anime is, though. This is how they do this, where they talked about how, they're going to do this together, and they said it together at the same time. I was like, that's how they would do it on an anime show. I mean, it's not my jam, but that is the style and the aesthetic and the way that those things are done within that genre. So yeah, I recognize that as very anime during that sequence.
I liked that when they punched the sky, they did it like she did it first, and then like they swung around, and then he did it.
They had to use
like,
the momentum of their bodies and the wind.
Teamwork, baby, teamwork. I've been watching a lot of Olympics. I was like, that was beautiful. 10 out of 10. The crowd goes wild.
They also, this is more of your expertise, but it also seemed like they had a magical girl transformation here, where
it did feel that way. Yeah,
Kal-El in the Black Mercy has his black and white Kryptonian suit, and Lois has her Star Lab suit. And when they remember and they're both together, he turns into having his Superman suit on, and she goes back to having her typical Lois Lane attire on. So they do have a transformation with their clothes that marks a physical transformation into them going back into the real world where they came from.
Yeah, that did feel very like reminiscent of those kind of like magical girl transformations where it like starts from his boots and it's like, ooh.
Well, there's another one of those that I guess maybe this would be a good time to talk about it now. I guess maybe that's a good segue, but Clark or Superman has another one at the very end.
Yeah,
of
that's
the
one I was thinking of.
That it looks like he has a new suit.
It looks like he upgraded.
Yeah, this looks totally different. The use of the yellow on top of his boots look different. The yellow on his belt, and the yellow looks like a different color to me. So, what do you think about this new look?
I like it. I don't know if I like it more than the old suit, but I don't think it's like a downgrade or anything. I don't think I even like visually picked up that it was that different, I think, until I'm looking at the still, and then like, oh yeah, I don't think his suit looked like that for most of the series. But if you're gonna give your character a different suit or like an upgrade, this is a great story reason, like in story reason. It's like, oh, he transformed from his evil version into a good version, and I don't know, magically got a new suit. Don't question it, don't ask about it, just accept it. How did he do it? Who knows?
Well, there are some people talking about the differences in the suit. In the chat, Silhouetted Animator says pointy shoulders.
Oh yeah, those shoulders are he looks like he's gonna go into like 9 to 5 with like the ladies from the 80s.
Oh yeah, he would fit right in with Working Girl. And,
shoulder pads, baby.
Yeah, Silhouetted Animator says those shoulder pads could take out a baddie's eye. Maybe it's a strategy. So there is that going for him. But yeah, I like the new suit. I think it's pretty cool looking. It has a little more style to it. I think that's one of the things that a lot of the Arrowverse shows would do, is they would constantly upgrade the suit. So My Adventures with Superman is going on 2 seasons now.
They're 2 seasons.
They're at the end of season 2. They can
do a makeover.
Yeah, they can have fun with a new suit if they want to. I buy
They've earned that makeover.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I guess maybe while we're here talking about Superman's new suit and his new look, we did have a live chat comment from last episode that we didn't get to. And maybe that's something that we should get to now. New Rachel says Superman's costume at the end of this episode, Boardroom or Ballroom. So maybe let's bring back Boardroom or Ballroom. We haven't done it in a while. So let's get back to it, and we will talk about the evil Superman, or the Super Brainiac, and we'll talk about his look.
And now, Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom.
Boy, it has been a while since we have heard that.
It has been a while. We need to start getting more fashion on here.
So in the captions, when I watched it on Max, when I watched this episode on Max, the character that Brainiac, as he overtakes Superman's body, is referred to as Super Brainiac. So I guess, Morgan, if you're cool with that, we will call him that.
Sure.
So Super Brainiac's look, red cape, some like a black suit, some red on it. What are you getting out of this suit?
I feel like Super Brainiac's look is a little bit like an extra in the band My Chemical Romance.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like he's going to go out, he's going to rock it. He's got a lot of emotions, right? He's got a lot of emotions, but they're dark emotions. And that's why there's so much black. It's dark, like his heart. I like that the Brainiac symbol is on his chest, but it kind of almost looks like instead of like just superimposing that on the suit, he was like, nah, man, this body's stacked. And
does it look bare chested to you? Is that what you're getting at? Because that's the way it looks like to me.
Yes, he's like, this body is stacked, and like, I'm not gonna keep that from the world, you know. If I'm this ripped now, me as Brainiac, I'm real ripped now. I'm just gonna show it off. So it looks like he's just kind of got like an open chest panel just to show, just so people know he's buff, which I respect, respect.
And he puts the Brainiac symbol right there on it, so it draws you in, so you have to look there.
Yeah, it's also he's like he really likes the Brainiac symbol, so he's like, you know what? I've been workshopping the symbol for a long time. There's not been a lot to do on this spaceship all by myself, so I've really been workshopping this whole look.
He has perfected the branding, but is it too
Exactly.
much? He's got the Brainiac symbol on the chest, but also on the forehead.
I would argue that it's too much. I think that sometimes when you're creating something beautiful, but you're not running it by like another person.
Yeah, focus group.
A focus group. There can be the urge to like 𝙎𝙪𝙥𝙬𝙪, right? I don't think that he like was running this by Kara and being like, is it Kara, be honest with me. Be honest with that. Is it too much? Is it too much when I take over this body? I don't know. I feel like the chest should be out though. I feel like the chest should be out. Peck window feels
he really fought for that.
Yeah, he's like, peck window feels very of the moment though, right?
Okay, I do have a question. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The black on the chin, is that a mask or is it like a goatee? What do you think that is? I couldn't figure it out.
If it was a goatee, it'd be real intense. That would be like an amazing way to be able to grow facial hair that I don't think he's got there yet. So I do think it's like part of the suit, because also Kara has sort of a thing on her own like suit where it kind of like comes up around the corners of her face. So I'm thinking that's sort of like a bigger part of the suit, that it kind of comes up onto the face, because he's got like these two wings that kind of come up onto his cheeks too. It does look weird though. It does look like he's testing out a goatee look just to see if this new body can pull it off, and he's like, I think I'm pulling it off. Kara, before I take over the city and maybe have to kill you, am I pulling this off? Be honest with Dad.
Also, one last thing I think we have to talk about, or at least I want to talk about, if there's anything else you want to address about this suit, please do.
Sure.
But it looks like he has like I don't know if it's part of his cape, but there's like a what would that be called? Like a scarf around his neck? It looks like a cloak or a scarf.
I would call it an infinity scarf. Listen, in the 2010s, these were very popular. You would get one at like Forever 21. You'd be like, oh my God, like it's a scarf, but you just wrap it around twice. You just wrap it around twice and you go. And I feel like, he's a little behind the times, right? He hasn't had like a lot of human contact. We don't know what he's been watching, like what his Netflix algorithm is. So he might still be in like maybe like a decade prior fashion cycle, which is fine. That's great for him.
He's just trying to bring it back more.
He's just trying to bring it back. It's also possible that like he's not quite used to a human body and he is a little chilly, which is, that's
but then but why the bare chest then? I feel
again,
like
he's real proud of how Clark's been working on his fitness, and he just feels like that those pecs need to be out, but his neck is chilly. So he's got it's like, have you ever seen those, like, it's like a tank top, but it's also like a turtleneck sweater, and you're like, what
is it, too hot or too cold?
Cold. Like, what do you I feel like it's a sort of a similar vibe. I just wanted to sort of point out too that we talked about the power shoulders in the new Superman costume.
Yes.
That seems to be a holdover from this Super Brainiac costume, because
oh my gosh, yes,
has some power shoulders. He is working 9 to 5. He is what a way to make a living.
That is a good call. I did not notice that. Definitely a holdover from the Super Brainiac. So I guess there's something that will remind him of that time.
I saw a silhouetted animator in the chat said Power Girl, but with Superman. And you know what? Yes, it's it's our turn. Put a ridiculous amount of man cleavage on display.
Yes,
he's like, listen, I've been in the not me personally because I'm a robot, but Clark has been in the gym. He's been working on this, and he should show his gains to everybody.
So maybe this is why we talked in the previous episode of Supergirl Radio about why would he not use Kara? He needed Superman for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Why he chose Superman? Maybe it was just Superman's physical look. Maybe he was like, I prefer that.
Maybe he was like, listen, I have been sketching out what I think my ideal costume would be. And it's like, it's really got to work a little bit better on his physique. It's nothing personal, Kara. It's just, I feel like you could maybe hand wave it. I think that this is like a strong point, like plot point. And I feel like in theory, it needs some explanation. I feel like if you wanted to do the work for them, you could be like, even though he is a cold, heartless robot, he had grown to love Kara. And so he wasn't quite ready to like take over her body and give her like the power metal makeover, the sort of like, emo makeover that he dreamed of doing with Clark. But I do feel like I'm doing that work for them. Like they're not providing this. I'm sort of workshopping this for them.
Well, I think, New Rachel, I hope that covers your question about the Super Brainiac look. And it was good to bring a Boardroom or Ballroom back for this one. I think it really warranted that discussion.
And this has been Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom.
Silhouetted animator in the chat says it's a dark scarf.
It is a dark scarf.
Yeah. So there's a power in the dark scarf, I guess.
Black like his heart. No one understands me.
So I guess while we're here, another big part of this episode is an invasion. Super Brainiac tries to invade Earth, and things go pretty south for Metropolis. We could talk about so many things. We could talk about, and Morgan, I'll let you pick what you want to talk about first. We could talk about Waller and Lex and their defense of Earth. We could talk about the Daily Planet staff rescuing Jimmy and Kara and Lois. We could talk about Kara fighting Super Brainiac. So what do you want to get to first?
Ooh, I think maybe first we start with the Daily Planet.
Yes,
because
okay.
I really liked that twist. So pretty early in the episode, Jimmy starts live streaming to Flamebird.
Oh my gosh, I was not ready. I was getting there. Right. Give it to me one more time.
To Flamebird. And like immediately like falls out of the sky, and Kara saves him and Lois. And we see a shot of his phone on the ground still live streaming. And I was like, how is this going to play in later? And it turns out it does play in later because Perry White shows up with our good pal Steve to save the day. So he gets Lois and Jimmy and Kara out of Waller's clutches, basically. And I really loved all the Steve callbacks from season 1.
There's probably the best Steve Lombard moment in this entire series in this episode. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but
nah.
So he says, what does he say? His line is, "We saw you get arrested and said, nah."
It's so good.
It was so good. The way that was delivered was just so perfect. And it really made that whole nah thing, the setup to that was so worth it by the time you get there.
I clapped. I was like, I've got nothing. That's an amazing moment. That was earned. That was earned from like a whole season and a half worth of beautiful character development. I also love that he was like, was it the Flame Bros?
Yes.
He brought that back. His van that has a bunch of wolves on the side of it. Everything about Steve in this episode was chef's kiss perfect. You know what? Steve is a real bro, and he's definitely somebody you want in your corner because he really came through. He really saved them when they were in quite a bit of trouble.
And he inspired Kara, which I thought was actually really sweet of Steve, because Kara is down on herself that she's been a puppet of Brainiac and she's been used to do terrible things and trained up for destruction, and she feels like a failure. And Steve's like, "You're related to Superman. Superman gets beat up all the time. What are you talking about? That doesn't mean he's not a hero, and that doesn't mean you're a hero." And I was like, "Thank you, Steve. Thank you for being encouraging to her." So Steve was just all around awesome in this. This is probably the best episode of Steve Lombard, I think, in the history of the show.
This was a heroic moment for Steve. For Steve's everywhere, really, but for this Steve in particular.
Yeah, it was great. I thought there was something interesting in this with Vicky Vale and Perry White, because they mentioned that they've had one of their reporters live streamed, and then that reporter has been arrested, and Vicky and Perry remind Amanda Waller of their Fourth Amendment rights. So they claim that arresting a journalist is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, I don't know that that's technically true.
I thought to myself as well that that's probably not true.
Because if a journalist did something wrong,
it's not like
you could arrest them.
It's not like you can be like, "I'm a journalist," and then just like continue like stealing a diamond necklace. So it doesn't. It's weirdly not like a total immunity from being charged with all crime, just being a journalist. But they probably should have some reason to arrest them. Feels like there was like a better explanation that they could have given. They were like, "We don't have time. Just cut to the Fourth Amendment line."
Well,
I was like, "Okay."
Technically, they just needed something to tell Waller to get her to be
That's
distracted for Steve to rescue Jimmy.
What if we
and Kara
cut
and Lois.
away from them having like a deep discussion about how that's not how that works?
Could they have a real deep dive discussion on the Fourth Amendment? That's what I wanted.
Yes,
I would have preferred that.
Actually, it would have been really amazing if they had that line like cut to Steve saving them, and then cut back to Amanda Waller being like, it's not that it works that way, because if they do crimes, and then all of a sudden you hear Steve like peel away, and she's like, "Oh, God, this happens to me every time."
So if people need a reminder on the Fourth Amendment, here is your Fourth Amendment right as an American. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, which they may have argued for, shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So it's basically, when you think of the Fourth Amendment, when I think of the Fourth Amendment, I focus in on unreasonable search and seizure is kind of what I guess they would have argued for their case.
I mean, they were definitely like just being detained without having been their rights. They were just basically being disappeared.
Yes.
But the way that they presented what the Fourth Amendment was, they're like, they're journalists, and therefore you can't arrest them. Fourth Amendment.
So I actually thought it was awesome that, Vicky and Perry have had this competition over the course of the show about who can be better, and they teamed up in order to save their people. And I thought that was awesome, because Vicky Vale obviously has a connection to Lois, offered Lois a job, which I don't think Lois has officially turned down yet.
I think that's still TBD.
Yeah,
I think that's still sort of in the air.
And then Perry cares about Jimmy quite a bit, because Jimmy's kind of a moneymaker for the Daily Planet.
Flamebird.
Even though he is not a moneymaker for himself now, he probably still is a moneymaker for the Daily Planet as Flamebird.
We gotta hope that he worked out like a good salary in addition to the getting bought out, because he's gonna need it now. He has just
no
a working man again.
He has no monies.
I want to point to my subhead in this one, which is that live streaming saved the day. in this episode.
It's a quick way to get the message out.
It's a quick way to get the message out. Communicating directly with the people.
Instant feedback.
We're all heroes here.
We are going to be important when the alien invasion comes. We'll help get that information to the people.
That's what we guarantee you right here, right now. If aliens come, I'm going to be like in the closet crying.
Yes, no, we probably will not
Not
go live
live
and wired.
We're live and wired from the invasion.
If that's how we had to go down, that might be a fun one for the aliens to watch later. I would like to think that we are Will Smith and what's his face from Jurassic Park in The Fly. What is his name?
Oh, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. I would like to think we are Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith at the end of Independence Day. We are flying in that spaceship, putting that virus. I would like to think that is us.
Real American heroes.
Do you want to know the stats of Jimmy's live stream?
I do actually. I was hoping that you paused because it came by too fast for me to pause, and then I got lazy about rewinding because not that we don't love Max, we love Max here. We love Max,
big fans.
But their rewind fast forward functions are not great.
I'm
like I'm always trying to go back, and it just like takes me back 15 seconds, and I was like, no, I just wanted to go back like 1 second. It was like a whole thing. I was like, I'm not playing with the rewind.
It is frustrating. Well, Jimmy goes live on social media. Not sure where. I don't know if this is on YouTube or just like his Instagram. I'm not real sure. But he goes live on social media from his phone to his bird watchers, which are his community of fans. So he's live streaming to the bird watchers to warn everybody of the upcoming or coming alien invasion. And at that moment, because this is, he goes live, and so everybody wants to see what I was about to say Flamebird, but I'm not ready. Everybody wants to see and hear what Flamebird has to say. So they hop on his live stream. And at that point, when it's like at its peak, when Jimmy is talking, he has 14.3 million viewers watching.
Whoa.
14 million. That is really pretty good.
He's doing some good numbers. So no wonder Perry White went to save him. He's like, listen, we're printing money over here.
But I don't know this. I don't know if this has been addressed by the show. Is this his Flamebird channel, or is this on the Daily Planet channel? I think it's still just his Flamebird account.
I think it's probably just the Flamebird account, but I feel like at this point, the Daily Planet owns the Flamebird account. So anything that would get that the Flamebird account would get basically is attributed to the Daily Planet. That would be my
whatever money comes in during his monetization,
exactly,
that's being turned over to the Daily. That makes sense because they want to keep the Flamebird brand so that it will continue to prosper.
How many did you say?
14.3 million.
He's getting like Jenny Nicholson Galactic Star Cruiser numbers here. Hey, this is impressive.
That's huge. That is huge. That is a long video, but it is so worth it to watch.
So good. You guys should all watch it.
Everyone should watch it. It's incredible. It really is. That is a documentary style, information. It's very good. But even though he starts out pretty strong at 14.3 million, by the time Waller arrests Jimmy, this makes sense. His viewership goes down to 5.5 million viewers watching the live stream. So he has a bit of a dip because everybody's like, well, he got arrested. I'm not going to
just the sky. Yeah.
But 5 million,
but 5 million, just watching the sky. I would have logged off by now. These people are the real fans.
The diehard.
These are the real bird watchers.
Yeah. Everybody was waiting to see if Jimmy would come back. Also, since we mentioned the live stream, this is also something I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on. So the stream is actually interrupted by what I think is one of Lex's robots. I couldn't tell if it was one of Brainiac's robots or Lex's robots, but the robot cuts the spaceship that they had been in half. This is the spaceship that Monsieur Mallah and the Brain have been piloting. And Kara tells them, because it gets kind of cut in half, she's like, you got to get out of here. And so the spaceship goes through a portal, and Kara saves Jimmy and Lois from hitting the ground. So Morgan, we talked about how Monsieur Mallah and the Brain had sort of threatened to do upgrades on the ship. Do you think, now that they have the ship in their control, do you think they're going to come back with upgrades to that spaceship?
I would be disappointed if they don't, honestly.
too.
I think that they have upgraded that ship. I think that ship has some like terrifying new abilities, things that would be probably dangerous and unstable.
World ending, probably.
Potentially world ending have been added to that ship like in the night while everyone was sleeping.
We don't know where they went, what they're doing, but it's probably dangerous.
Every couple needs hobbies.
They get bored and they want to tinker.
Yeah.
They want to tinker. So I did think that was pretty funny when just conveniently they were the ones who got separated out of them from that
I was
situation.
like, I think they'll be back.
I think they'll be back. So I don't think I've seen the last of Monsieur Mallah and the Brain. So we talked about the Black Mercy and that world, and we talked about the alien invasion and the Daily Planet. I guess the only thing we really haven't spent a lot of time on was Amanda Waller and Lex Luthor. So Lex unveils his Metallos, as we surmise that his Project M was probably standing for Metallo. So he's using these robots, gave them kryptonite cores, and it's effectively the Superman supervillain Metallo. So Morgan, what did you think about Lex Luthor trying his first attempt at stopping an alien invasion?
So far, not going great. We like the hustle, but the performance itself, sort of medium. He seemed to be pretty good at creating machines that would be competitive against Superman and Supergirl. Not so much competitive against like an evil Kryptonian robot himself, because they did not stand up very well to all of Brainiac's robots.
Yeah, he did not anticipate Super Brain. Well, I guess at that point, Brainiac, because once Clark or Cal gets out of the Black Mercy, I guess Brainiac consciousness, I don't even know.
Back, I guess?
He goes back to his robot self, and he's not happy about this. And he covers his technology in some sort of kryptonite shielding, so they're not affected by kryptonite. So that throws Lex's whole plan out, because he was like, kryptonite cores, this is gonna work. And then Brainiac covers his tracks and prevents the kryptonite from being damaged. So Lex does not have a good first showing to Amanda Waller. So Amanda Waller does not succeed in her defense of the world. She tries to throw some stuff back at Super Brainiac, but it does not work. So this presents a real problem, because Brainiac has a huge ship. He has what's called oh my gosh, what is that beam called? The Archer beam? Yes, the Archer beam. So he tries to set the world on fire using this Archer beam, is what he calls it. And at first, Kara fights back at it and sort of pushes the beam back up in real heroic fashion. It was really cool to see Kara doing that. And the second time around, Superman does it. So it is his show. He gets to be kind of the ultimate hero. I think that's fair. And he stops the Archer beam, but Brainiac now, the big cliffhanger of this episode is that he uses kryptonite on Cal and Kara. What do you think about this cliffhanger?
I was on the edge of my seat, because it does feel like Kara, which I like that Kara had that really heroic moment where she jumped in front of the beam, and it seemed like if the beam hit her again, that might have been even for her.
Yeah.
She seemed like she was pretty beaten down after the first beam strike.
But she was willing to.
But she was going to fight again.
To die.
Like,
yeah,
she's my girl.
Yeah, she was willing to go.
But yeah, it seems like it's just them against all these Kryptonian, robotic invaders, and so with them out of commission, it does feel like it's a really good cliffhanger, because I was literally like, what are they gonna do? Like, how do they stop this again? Because it felt like when they jumped in front of the beam, like that normally would have been kind of like the heroic ending. And so for there to be a twist and then to get kind of taken out with the kryptonite, I wasn't expecting it. It did make me like really on the edge of my seat for the next episode, which I've been on record saying I think that they've been doing excellent cliffhangers at the end of every episode. Not like annoying cliffhangers or like, ugh, but like ones that really make you want to like tune in for the next episode and find out what's going to happen.
I like that the stakes have been raised to such an extent where I'm like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this. I mean, that's pretty dire straits for them to lose Clark and Kara. They're going to be in some real trouble because when Kara was out of commission, Superman stepped up. But now, who is that going to be?
I know.
But actually, I have a thought. I haven't seen episode 10, so this is purely a theory.
Neither have I.
We were introduced to John Henry Irons earlier on in the season.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I wonder if we'll see Steel show up.
We could. That would make a lot of sense because the last time we saw him, he had like a suit, right?
He did have a
Like
suit.
he took off with the suit. So it does feel like we might. I think we're gonna get like a finale that's sort of like like the power of love, where everybody's gonna kind of come together with their own special strengths and abilities to save the day. And I think that would make a lot of sense if he popped back up again, because they did set him up really nicely and kind of left him in the distance, much like our boy Steve, who came back with the perfectly timed nah.
It was so good. That was the best part of the episode for me.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put that prediction out there. Chat. Don't tell me if I'm wrong. We'll discover if I'm wrong in the next episode of Supergirl Radio. But that is my prediction, that John Henry Irons might show up to save the day, because somebody needs to get them out of the way of the kryptonite, so he could maybe pull them out of there and help them fight and save the day. So I think that would be really cool if that happened, but I'm not also going to be disappointed because it's not my show and they can do whatever they want to. So, Morgan, are there any other thoughts that you had about this episode that we did not talk about that you wanted to mention?
I just thought, once again, another really good one. I thought that they really balanced the storylines that were inside Clark's mind with the stuff that was going on outside really well, because sometimes in scenarios like that, where like something's happening, but it's not really happening, that can like maybe take over an episode, where like the real life stuff kind of feels like you're like, oh no, I want to know what's happening in reality, and then you go back to like somebody like getting deep into their trauma or something. You're like, I mean, this is great also, but like, are they gonna all die out there? And I felt like they did like a really good job at balancing that, where it felt like we weren't ever spending too much time in one location going like, okay, like, but it like Jimmy's fine, but like, is Lois dying? And so I feel like the way that they switched back and forth and like really moved the story along was really well done.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. The pacing of it was really fairly well done in terms of getting you to that end and making it feel like it had just gone by so quickly. Yeah, I really like this one a lot. I thought this was a fantastic penultimate episode to really set up the series. Not the series. Oh, gosh.
Oh, no, not that.
The season finale. Every penultimate episode really has to set up that final episode of the season and make it really challenging for the characters. And I think this one did a really good job at that. I loved all the Kara stuff in this one. I know I'm probably pretty biased, but Kara punching Super Brainiac in the face was awesome.
So cool.
Her line that she says, "You forced me to destroy worlds, but I will fight for this one," I thought was really good. So the Kara stuff was just, for me, really great, because it gave Kara somewhere to go. She starts off as hopeless and down on herself, but even Jimmy encourages her, you get to decide what you want to be, no one else does. So I think her realizing that she doesn't have to live in that negative place that she's been in because of all the things that Brainiac sort of forced her to do. So I think you need that for a character who did destroy worlds, and has to live with that guilt, and being able to get her out of that mud, I think is that metaphorical mud, I think is a good way to take that character. I also thought, just in terms of the animation and the storytelling and the direction in this, there's a lot of animation creative aspects that I think they're doing a great job with. There's a moment when right before Clark kind of remembers who he is in the Black Mercy, Lois says that she's desperately in love with him. And right at that moment, the sunshine comes from one side of the screen and sort of wipes the shadows in that scene away.
Ooh.
And I thought that was a nice touch. I mean, it could be seen as a little cheesy that, you know, her love is getting rid of the shadows and the darkness. But I was like, you know what? I'm on board with this. I think that's
Is
a
it
nice
cheesy
touch.
or beautiful?
That's a nice touch. So it's very subtle. It didn't like hold your hand on that. You know, it let me get there on my own. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of the animation because I think, you know, that's a nice creative touch. They didn't have to add that, but it for me, it made more of an impact in that moment. And there was also another little shot that I really liked. There was a shot of Brainiac, Super Brainiac, with Kara, and they're fighting in the sky. Kind of goes back to this close-up shot of the sort of bare-chested Super Brainiac. But right before you see them being revealed, there's smoke in front of Super Brainiac. So he looks really scary behind the smoke, and then it sort of reveals itself to show his face. And I just thought some of those moments, those little touches to the animation, I thought really made this episode very creative and very interesting visually for me to watch. So I enjoy those little small touches. Well,
yeah, I've really been enjoying what they have done with Supergirl over the course of this season, especially with only like 10 episodes, and she comes in late, about halfway through the season. And I think that they've really established her very well as a character and given her a really good, compelling arc. And I think, you know, made me, I mean, obviously we're biased, but I think for the average viewer, you would come out of this really wanting to know more about Supergirl or, you know, see more of Supergirl. I think they did a really good job introducing a character who's like kind of a big character. And that's not always easy in a show after, you know, you're kind of established, you know, the first season of like of who the main characters are, to like bring in a new character who's also a big focus pooler. Sometimes it can kind of feel like, okay, like let's go back to my friends. But I think that they really incorporated Kara in such a good way and have told her story so well so far, and kind of contrasted her against Clark so that her story is also a good way to tell Clark's story. And I think as we joke sometimes, you know, that didn't always happen on Supergirl, the TV show. Sometimes she got overtaken by some of the other cast members' stories.
She was a minor character on her own show a lot of the time.
By the final season, it was
she was a guest character.
Supergirl, you know, there's like air quotes around it. So it's really nice to see a show where like, it, you know, as much as I would love Supergirl to take over and just be the focus of the show, it really is all in service to this story that they're telling about Superman. And I think that she is sort of showing him like a path not taken, where, you know, this is sort of what life could have been like if he had grown up on Krypton, but also maybe if he had grown up with, you know, with people who weren't supportive and didn't love him, like how she got, you know, raised by Brainiac, and how that ended up corrupting her, but not really, because there's that goodness at the heart. And I think I really like the way that they've been doing her story on this season, which I'm delighted about, because, you know, when they said they were doing Supergirl, I was like, oh yay, and I trusted the show, but I was like a little bit, you know, I hope they do right by her, and I think they've done a great job.
Yeah, I like that Kara's inclusion in all of this feels very natural. It doesn't feel like she's being shoehorned into these stories. So I do think they have done a really great job with Supergirl. Let's see. I was trying to see if there were any other thoughts in the chat that we hadn't got to before we kind of wrap up our discussion. Brian says Lex hasn't hit his stride yet, only the beginning of his evil ways. I agree. I think this is the start of his villainy, and he's probably going to develop more of a dislike for aliens. This is not going to really change his mind on things. Even though Superman did kind of step up to try to save them.
Saving the day. I mean, I don't know what he's complaining about. I mean, just because the whole situation is also a little bit his fault, I don't think that should be held against him. I saw this comment from Brian that I thought was interesting. Brian said, this kind of reminded me of the Tom Cruise movie Edge of Tomorrow.
I haven't seen that. I need to watch it.
I think
it's good.
It's so funny. I wanted to highlight this because recently rewatched it. My husband had never seen it, and I saw it in theaters and like never again. And it's such a good, solid movie. I remember coming out of the theater, my friend had like convinced me to go, and I was like, I don't really even want to see this movie, but whatever, I'll go see a movie. And I came out and I was like, I'm hyped. That was great. But the idea sort of the movie is that obviously it's a classic Groundhog Day. It's a time loop. But the character kind of gets better and better as he goes along in the time loop because he like learns things. I think we kind of saw that from Lois too. Is like, the second or third time through the time loop, she's like, okay, now I know where I'm going.
Yeah. Yeah. She got better and had better strategy as she went along. That movie also has Emily Blunt, right?
Emily Blunt is amazing in that movie.
That has to help, I feel like.
It's a great movie. I didn't want this to become the Edge of Tomorrow podcast.
I mean,
really,
it could.
People should watch it.
Edge of Tomorrow Radio. We're about to start.
It was underrated. People should watch it.
Maybe we should do a Supergirl Radio Patreon review.
We could.
We could do an Edge of Tomorrow review.
The people have been clamoring for it.
Mind the Gap in the chat says, I've seen anime and Japanese game characters have those types of scarves, talking about the Super Brainiac scarf. So,
you know what? Yeah, I think I have as well. I relate it to it a little bit too much as somebody who owns a couple Infinity scarves. I called myself out on that one.
Yeah, I think that's cool if that is true, that it still remains in the anime style, even down to the costume that the evil Super Brainiac is wearing. So that's pretty awesome. Well, Morgan, would you like to make a few snap judgments before we get out of here? Okay. In the game of snap judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended and explanations are unnecessary.
Okay, so our first snap judgment is more endearing aspect.
That's a different question.
That would be different. Oh boy, I can speak. More endearing aspect of Black Mercy Kal-El, that he wanted to befriend a Sun Eater, or that he brought Lois Lane cake.
This is a really tough one.
This is a tough one because those are both very cute.
I was gonna say the Sun Eater, but I kind of like that he was just like, everybody likes cake. I feel like you should have some cake, which is true. I feel like most people like cake.
I'm not gonna turn down a cake,
but maybe there are some people who are like, no, I'm more of a pie person.
That's true. Like, whether it's a cake or pie, but if it's like you're offering, I have no cake and you're offering me cake, I'm going to take cake. If it's like a cake pie situation, I might have to think about it. Yeah. But I'm not going to turn down cake.
But if someone doesn't like the cake, are you just then forcing it on them? That could be annoying. That could
what if she was like, ooh, I'm like, I have like a gluten thing.
So if I think about it that way, maybe like he knew what the Sun Eater wanted. And he was like, he was guessing with the cake.
He was guessing with cake, but it was very thoughtful.
It was thoughtful.
It was endearing.
And he did eat it so that she wouldn't think that she was being poisoned, which is also kind of a
He's
scary
like, no,
aspect.
Yum yum.
So I guess I'm gonna go Sun Eater on this one.
I'm also going to go Sun Eater on this one, although I also love cake and would accept any kind of cake. But I just think it's really cute when people have pets that they love. And he was like, hey, who's a good Sun Eater? He had the little sun for him. I was like, that's a good Sun Eater dad, you know? Okay, our next snap judgment. Best appearance in the episode by a Daily Planet employee. Vicky Vale and Perry White reminding Amanda Waller of their Fourth Amendment rights. Or Steve Lombard busting Jimmy, Lois, and Kara out of Waller's custody.
See, I don't have to think about this one.
This one's an automatic for me.
This is Steve Lombard.
This is a true snap judgment for me. It's Steve.
Steve, yeah. No, don't even have to
anyone else? Nah. Nah.
No judgments on your snap judgments. That was was quite possibly the easiest snap judgment we maybe ever had.
Honestly, yeah, I didn't even think about it.
Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. If you'd like to contact us, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on X and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. Supergirl Radio is part of the DCTV Podcast and Multiverse of Color Network. So if you want to go check those out, please do. You can hang out with us as we go live and wired on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on the DCTV Podcast YouTube channel and the Supergirl Radio Facebook page. And DCTV Podcast also has a TeePublic store. So if you are in need of new DC or DCTV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, magnets, tote bags, pins, phone cases, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic link at the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
And since this episode of My Adventures with Superman featured Lex Luthor, we have some Luthor designs in the DCTV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
I actually need some Lex Luthor gear because I just received an email today that, I mean, obviously I volunteered for this, but they confirmed that at DragonCon, I'm going to be on the Battle of the Lexes panel.
Ooh.
So I'm going to
how many Lexes are there?
Well, I mean, there's lots of Lexes. There's the Gene Hackman. There's the John Shea. There's the Michael Rosenbaum.
Who's that?
Kevin Spacey.
Whose corner are you boxing in?
Ducky Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg. Tom.
Yeah.
Not
Ducky Lex Luthor.
It's not Tom Clancy. What's his name?
Tom Clancy's the author, right?
Yeah, but Clancy though. Superman the animated series Lex Luthor. What is his name?
Oh God.
What is his name?
I'm so bad at this.
I feel like it's Clancy, but what is his first name? Someone in the chat tell me what his name is. I blanked on it. Clancy Brown. I knew there was a Clancy in there somewhere. I was like, it's not Tom Clancy. Clancy
so close to successfully Googling this for you.
But there's a lot of Lex Luthors out there. And I was on a panel. I think there was a Battle of the Supermen panel that I did a couple of years ago with Michael Bailey, friend of the pod. And it was a ton of fun. So we're going to be doing a Battle of the Lexes this time around. So
that's so fun.
We'll probably talk a little bit about Ducky Lex Luthor and maybe also the Lex on Superman and Lois. He's a pretty good one. So there is that. It did remind me of how if Ducky Lex Luthor had just been in season 4 of Supergirl,
oh man,
he would have been amazing.
Oh man.
But then he stuck around for season 5 and season 6, and it was like, why are you still here? What are you doing here?
The problem with Ducky Lex Luthor was not that he wasn't amazing. It's that he narratively overstayed his welcome.
He really did. It was like, you need to go.
They also didn't know what to do with him. So they were like, I know what we're going to do. The same thing we did before. It's like, oh, it was really exciting the first time. It's going to be less exciting this time. They're like, we don't care.
Surprise. It's all Lex.
Surprise. It's always been me. It's like, that's not surprising.
That's not surprising anymore.
Third season of this.
So I anticipate being able to talk about that as well. So I'm probably going to be possibly on 3 panels at DragonCon. So Battle of the Lexes, a Supergirl, the movie 40th anniversary panel, I think. I was invited to at least, so we'll see if they add me on there. And then a Rebel Moon panel. So we'll have hopefully a lot of Supergirl Radio content that you can listen to so that you can feel like you went to DragonCon. So I will need some Lex Luthor merchandise is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And guess what? Our store is the perfect place to browse.
You can go see all of our Lex Luthor designs that are in the DCTV Podcast TeePublic store. We would also like to thank that's the TeePublic graphic. We'd also like to thank our Legion of Super sponsors for supporting the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Majuba, Zachary, Annie, and Rachel. And if you would also like to be a Legion of Super sponsor, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. We have recently talked about my trip to Ireland. We reviewed the new disaster movie, or new-ish disaster movie, Twisters. Not Twisters. Twisters.
Multiple.
Has an S at the end. So if you are interested in those movie reviews and those trip discussions, go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. And if you want to keep up with me, you can find me on the social media platform Zero True Social. I'm over there at 𝙤𝙪𝙾. You can see what I'm watching or what I'm listening to, or any of the links that I share of some videos that maybe I've edited or things that I've been working on. You can follow me on Instagram at the 𝙤𝙪𝙾. You can also find me on my personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/duckmilkprod. I am going to be starting up a new series that's been long in the works. I just haven't been able to sit down and finalize everything, but I'll be doing a series of interviews with other Zack Snyder fans, talking about why they like his movies, just because that's very therapeutic for me to talk to other people who enjoy the same thing that I do. So if you're interested in that, I'll be starting that. Hopefully, I'm going to try to launch the first interview of that on this upcoming Sunday. So be looking out for that on my YouTube channel. And you can follow my travel blog at Oasis Broom on social media and on YouTube. You can see a 4-minute-ish video that I did of my trip to Ireland.
Ooh,
And check that out at Oasis Broom on YouTube.
that's awesome. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic. You can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast, where I was out late and I missed the San Diego Comic-Con recap episode, but Kat and Amy recently hopped on because they were both at San Diego Comic-Con and talked about their experience there. And Kat they both had a great convention, I think, and I've heard, especially Kat, because she got to moderate some panels and do some fun stuff, and Amy was in the Hero Within lounge the whole time, the Star Trek lounge. So they had a great time at Comic-Con. So if you also, like me, had Comic-Con FOMO, you can hear all about some people who actually went to Comic-Con. And this week we are going to be diving into the new Batman animated show.
Cape Crusader.
Cape Crusader. So I'm currently working my way through that, but we're going to talk about, I think, the whole season. So, if you were also either caught up or working your way through that could be a great thing. You should check out at the Legendary Ladies on YouTube, or check us out on Patreon, the Legendary Ladies podcast, and subscribe. This way, you know when the new episodes are coming out. Also, I want to plug our own podcast really quickly, because I have been obsessed with the Olympics since they started. It turns out I always thought I was more of a Winter Olympics girly.
Oh,
because
really?
I love the figure skating.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
But it turns out I also love the Summer Olympics because I love gymnastics. They are my favorite. And speaking of, I don't know, Olympic gymnasts, we've actually had one on the podcast.
We have.
And and Laurie Hernandez has actually been doing some commentary for the women's gymnastics. Twitter is loving her. She's doing a great job. I guess she mentioned something about like fan fiction, and people were like, "Laurie, drop your favorite stuff." And she mentioned Supercore, so Supergirl is still in there. But that just reminded me to plug that we've had her on the we've had a real Olympian on the podcast. What was that, like last year or the year before?
Oh yeah, it was a while ago, but yeah, if you haven't checked it out, we have the audio podcast version, but we also have video on YouTube, so you can actually see Laurie on the podcast, and she was a lot of fun because I believe we boardroom or ballroomed with her.
Yes, I think we did.
If I remember, because she was really into Lena Luthor fashion.
I think we got some Lena Luthor looks.
Yeah,
boardroom or ballroom with Laura Hernandez. Anyway, I've been feeling that feeling where you're like, I know her, even though I don't.
You do though.
I sort of do.
Yeah.
I sort of know her. Anyway, she has been great doing the commentary for the Olympics, and we've had her on this podcast.
Yeah, it's a great interview, and the reason that we had her on was because we learned that she was a big Supergirl fan, we were just curious about why she likes Supergirl. So it was a really fun interview with not only an Olympian, but also just a fellow Supergirl fan. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun talking to her about Supergirl and like bringing up these like really funny I don't know, Supergirl specific, almost inside jokes that we have, and her being like immediately like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So, oh my God, Olympians are too into fandom too. It's so exciting.
We should have her back to see if she can explain the totem storyline to us.
We should bring like one of those whiteboards.
Yeah.
And
then
just
you
be like,
track
and
this,
then
the totem storyline.
and then
for season
that
6.
happens. Laura, you're getting this. No one understands it.
No, I don't even think the writers could have explained it to you. But yeah, so that's a lot of fun. So we will maybe we'll put that on the socials for people if it makes it easier for people to find, because it is a good time. If you've never listened to or watched it, check it out. And I also have been, just within the last day, have been really getting into, I kind of, for the first like week and a half, I'm like, I kind of came in at the last minute and I was like, badminton. Yes, I want to watch badminton. I got really too into there was there was Korea versus China, and I mean, they were like so good, and I was way too into it. I got too invested into that short badminton game. Then I got watching, like right after that, it was like field hockey, and I was like, well, I guess I'm into this field hockey game now.
I got really into one night, like the beach volleyball, and I was like, I don't
yeah.
care about beach volleyball. And as I was about to like click away, I was like, oh, the one girl's really tall, but the other girl's really small, and like put down the remote. I was like, how are they going to do this?
Anyway, out of a curiosity factor.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what?
Yeah, some of those sports you just don't get to see a lot.
It's true. It's true.
So, yeah, so I too have kind of gotten into it myself. Well, I hope that everyone who joined us for this live stream really enjoyed Supergirl Radio, because I know this is your Olympic time. So
this is.
We appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us over the Olympics.
You can always watch the Olympics later. Priorities.
Well, I guess on that note, that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And remember, you get to decide what you want to be.
McGurk, I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is 𝙈𝙾 𝘼𝙙 Boardroom or Ballroom, because
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!